So we saw the first, this is Throne World, by the way. I'm on turn 6. We saw the first player-to-player interaction, and it occurred here at a planet the Baralti just captured. The Trill tried to scan it, and the Baralti had already scanned it and had already reduced the forces there. So they played in a jam against that scan, and they were able to do this because they're within range with their comm of the planet. So they prevented the Trill from scanning this planet they wanted. The Trill could have perhaps counter-jammed, but they hadn't planned on that. They planned on expanding, which they did. And then the Baralti were able to expand into the territory that they had prepared quite nicely. A couple of heavies took on 2 lights and a command post, which is not the easiest fight in the world, actually, but with +2 tech, it wasn't that hard. It would have been almost impossible if they weren't the Baralti. The Baralti get 2 dice for heavies, which no one else does on attack. But they wouldn't have been building heavies if that was the case. Anyway, that's the end of the 7th turn. Or 6th turn, sorry. Both the Baralti and Trill are building up. This was a production turn to go to war with one another. The Zytel and the Kateni are building up for expansion, as is the Venib, but the Pasha were very unhappy with the Venib playing sabotage against them as an Imperial event out of the chit. So they built a humongous navy with the intention of going after the Venib. Now the Venib are not without their own resources. I mean, when you build up whatever you're doing for expansion, for whatever, for war, you're building your forces to cope with the other players. The Kateni built another command post. They get the cheap ones, so that's kind of a bonus for them. And it puts them in a more interesting position than anyone else in a lot of ways because of that. Alright. Another failure, this time by the Kateni. They invaded this planet, which has 4 protectors, 2 fighters, and 4 light infantry at first. The naval battle started to go poorly, even though they outnumbered. The high tech for the defender was a killer. It was Space 4, which gave them a +1. The ground was only a 3. Sorry about that. They landed 2 drop units because they couldn't stick around to drop their land units in. And it was a close run thing. Both sides got eliminated. But that means they didn't get the planet, and they took some very heavy losses. Their navy is down to 3 motherships, and that's it. Okay, at the end of 7, this was a non-production turn. Of course, that's always kind of random. The event was an Imperial attacks, and again, it was pretty useless. 2 drop troops had the +1 advantage used against the Baralti command post here. The hope was, well, look, the space unit is crap. Let's see if we can do it with the drop troops against garrisons. The real problem is there's just no reason to garrison things lightly, and a command post is heavy enough that it can take out this little Imperial attack, even with the +1 bonus. There was a chance it could take out a command post, and that's pretty valuable if it does. Alright, what happened? The Kateni did not do well. I pointed out their attack, and they're in bad shape. The Venib, I believe, were able to expand to another planet and increase their value. And there were no player versus player attacks. Basically, everybody feathered their nest, although I believe the Pasha moved their fleets together. And they're planning to attack the Venib still. They just were too far away to actually make a strike with everything. The Venib are not aware of this, that this battle is going to happen, but they probably should be somewhat suspicious. I believe we had the Baralti moved some of their command posts forward. Again, in an attempt, just as others have done, to position themselves a little bit better. Technology, the Beraltis are actually doing quite well on tech, even if their board presence isn't that high. Actually, the people who have the worst board presence in general have pretty good tech. The people who've got the best board presence, especially the Venab, are doing well in tech because that's their special advantage. But in terms of total spaces gained, they're not doing that well on the tracks. So, key issue I missed in my sort of descriptions and planning, if you haven't scanned something, you can't invade it yet. So, these thoughts of the Pasha marching into Venab territory, those aren't going to come true because they haven't scanned any of the Venab territory to begin with. So you've got to give people at least a turn's warning before you actually go to war with them. That's kind of cool. I mean, you might get a double turn because of the randomizing of the order, but there is definitely a cost to going to war with someone, at least for the first time, in terms of you have to give them some sort of alert. And I like that. I like that a lot. After 8 turns here, and this was a production turn, so we slipped into a non-production turn next time. I don't remember what the event. Oh, the event was a production advance, which didn't affect things. Probably the biggest indication that's coming up is the Catenni are really hosed right now. You know, it doesn't really look like it, but those are all scans, not ownership. They only own 4 planets. And they had to rebuild their fleet after the debacle that hit them. They do have a couple of options. One is they've mainly destroyed the defenses at that one planet, so they'll probably be able to get that. And I think they can take one more planet next round. So they're not necessarily out of it. Unfortunately, the Beralti scanned one of their planets. The Beralti also scanned a Trill planet, though. It's just becoming clear for the Beralti that if they want to advance, they're either going to have to take some of these big areas they found, because they found ugly stuff just like the Catenni did. This whole side of the board is kind of painful. Or they have to expand at somebody else's expense. So, being the Beralti, they're of course warlike. And we don't know which way that's going to go. But right now, making scans against other people was a good idea. We actually saw an interceptor, a jam of the scan. They tried to do 2 scans on the Trill against this planet up here that's completely undefended. Over here on the Venab Pasha border, we're not seeing any hostile motion yet. Whatever tensions there were seem to have kind of settled down a little bit. And they've looked more towards internal production. The Venab are definitely still in the lead, although not necessarily production-wise. The Pasha are producing 53 a turn, which makes it maybe worth the Venab's while to start a war now, before they fall too far behind. But the Pasha have a tremendous force, so I wouldn't be shocked if they start one. Anyway, like I said, it's a hard game to see what's going on. One thing in particular that hit me is the 2 orange players. This may be because I don't like orange terribly, and I understand they can't have a blue player. Blue is the color of their spaceships, and that would be really confusing too. But it's one of the effects of the design decision that everybody should use the same counter mix for troops, spaceships and ground troops, blue and brown respectively, is that there aren't that many colors that are normal colors for a game available for the players. And so, I've seen some games where there's dark blue and light blue, and I can handle that. I say dark blue and light blue in my head. Somehow I don't say dark orange and light orange in my head, probably because I don't like the two colors. Then you add the red in there, and actually color-wise, it's kind of tough for even me to tell. I can imagine this game would be horrible for anybody who was, as many games are, for anyone who's colorblind. With all the counters looking more or less the same, and I've played with at least one player who had this very severe color blindness, and he had real difficulty with games of this nature. There's not much you can do. I mean, you can try to help them defining the borders, etc., but it's going to be a serious handicap in the game. Of course, somebody who's completely blind is going to have even more trouble. So, board games are not necessarily terribly accessible.